Telling him not to counterpunch. People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
you human trafficker.
Honorable
You are a human
They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders.
Telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome to yet another exciting edition of Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. On this edition of the program, Team Nigeria is set for the World Relays and coming in for the World of Tennis. There has been improved ranking for Nigerian teenage sensation. Meanwhile, in football, Bayer Leverkusen in match number 48 undefeated. Details of these and many more will be yours when we return from the break.
Telling him not to counterpunch. People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human trafficker.
Honorable
You are a human
They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
so no agreement with the EU, but
Welcome back. Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network. Kingsley Manuel is here.
Thank you very much for having me. We're very happy to be here.
As usual, we'll start from the local scene where the Vice President of the Nigeria School Sports Federation, Mr. Emmanuel Ebong, has called on sponsors of the competition to be up and running.
For me, I think it's a good call, at this point in time. And from what we're seeing, school sports has actually gone down the lane, and we're not seeing, of course, much importance being placed on school sports anymore. School sports is actually, a competition whereby we're able, to get, talent, for global competition or maybe for national competition. But these days, talents are no longer getting, from school sports, at this point in time, due to the fact that, of course, the federation, they don't have enough money to organize, school competitions, and all of that. And at the end of the day, we don't tend, to see much attention being paid, to school sport. But if there are sponsorship, if there are sponsors, of course, the organizers will be able to have that get a lot of resources to be able to put up, competitions together. So for me, I think there is need, for sponsors, to come in and see how they can revive, school sports in Nigeria. If that is being done, of course, we'll no longer, of course, be looking out, when it has to do with, getting talent, for global competition. We'll definitely go to schools or maybe get to this competition, see those athletes that are performing very well, pick them and then groom them, put them in a very comfortable shape, and at the end of the day, they'll be useful, of course, to the country. So for me, I think the call is right at this point in time, talking about, sponsorship, for school sport. I think for me, it will really go a long way in reviving school sports in Nigeria.
School sports has to be revived here in Nigeria, and one way of reviving school sports where academics can be combined with sporting activities is ensuring that there is sponsorship, which ensures that it is attractive to children who definitely want to combine their education with sports, and that will elite parents for allowing their children to go into championship. So we encourage sponsors to look at the direction of school sports. Kisley, it's principle that if that is done, you can catch them young, which is the mantra across the world.
Yeah, definitely. That's actually the main target. That's the focus, at this point in time, catching them young. I think for me, when it has to do with, catching them young in Nigeria, I don't think that has been practiced, for so many years now. What we do at this point in time is to look at those athletes that are applying their trade, outside the country, and then call them for global competition, even some national competitions as well. We don't see home-breed athletes, participating, and that is very, very wrong. If we continue like this on the long run, of course, we'll definitely run out of, talents whenever we have global competition to participate in. So for me, I think that's the focus, catching them young. If they're able to get these sponsors and they come in and they're able to organize this competition, of course, you can, the Athletic Federation of Nigeria or Table Tennis Federation of Nigeria, you talk about weightlifting, you talk about, wrestling federation, they can go down there and be able, of course, to spot these talents and, of course, groom them to become, better, in the future. So I think that's actually the main focus, catching them young. It will be something very huge. We've seen sometimes, when we have national sport festival in the states, some states actually go down to other states, to pick, to poach athletes, to come participate for them. This is as a result of the fact that this school sport is now available where they can possibly pick some of these athletes, from this competition. So I think for me, that's the focus. If they can get the sponsors and being able to organize the competition, I tell you, we'll have a lot of talents down here in Nigeria.
Talents here in Nigeria are bound, but we have to have those who make it attractive for these young kids to combine their education. Most kids, maybe without sponsors and without some level of motivation, do not want to leave their academics as good on by their parents. And so, but if they know that they can combine the education with sports, definitely you will be interested and be able to catch these talents at a very young age. Let's quickly go to the world release. In Bahamas, in the next 24 hours, there will be the world release, and of course, one of the best athletics events around the world. They were expected to converge at the Bahamas. Team Nigeria is one of the contingents expected in the Bahamas for the world release. How prepared are Team Nigeria for the world release, Kingsley?
I think they're very prepared, from what we're seeing at this point in time. We have about 40 countries who actually participate in this one, and it's actually a route, for you to pick, the Olympic tickets, and it's good that we see the relay team, this time around at the Paris Olympic, and we hear that the Athletic Federation of Nigeria, of course, they've actually organized, trainers to train the athletes, for this particular one. The trainers are Gabriel Okon and Endurance Ojokolo. They've been on guide to make sure that these athletes, of course, go down there and being able, of course, to pick the ticket for the Paris Olympic game. When you talk about relay, I think that's an area where Nigeria has not really done well over time, because there's always this issue when it has to do with exchange of batting, and all of that, and we've not really gotten it right, for some time now. And I think it's then time we start paying much attention when it has to do with relay race. So what happened at the All-African Games, in Ghana earlier this year. Team Nigeria, yes, we had an impressive performance down there. But I think for me, looking at the fact that we're aiming at picking up the ticket for the Paris Olympic Games, I think these coaches that have been lined up, to train these athletes should do more in order for we to avoid, any problem or any hitches when it has to do with, exchange of batting down there in Bahamas. For me, it's a good one. We just hope that, of course, the relay team of Nigeria will be able to do needful and then get the ticket for the Paris Olympic Games.
Talking about Team Nigeria going to the world release, there was a recent event in Ghana, the African Games. Do you think that was a strong preparatory ground ahead of the world release at the Bahamas?
Yes, for me, I think it's a strong preparatory ground because they were able to put up, dominance at that one, picking up 4 gold medals, in the men and women's 4x100 meters and women's 4x400 meters as well, even in the mixed 4x400 meters as well. These are areas, where they were able, of course, to amass, medals. 4 medals, for the relay team of Team Nigeria at the All-African Games in Ghana. For me, I think that's a huge one, and with that, they can be able to build on that momentum in this particular relay race in Bahamas.
Relay race is coming up in Bahamas in the next 24 hours, and it is very crucial towards the Paris Olympic qualifying team event. 40 countries expect to qualify for the team event via the world release. Team Nigeria should be one of those 40 countries.
Yes, it should be. It should be, because I tell you, we can't actually miss out on the relay race at the Paris Olympic. It should be a huge setback. I think relay, despite the setback we've experienced over the years, I think it's been one of the sports, of course, Nigeria always participates in. And this time around, I think looking at the performance at the All-African Games in Ghana, I think things are becoming, getting, a little bit right, when it has to do with relay down here in Nigeria. So for me, we hope the coaches, Gabriel and Gerrans, of course, will do their best to make sure that Team Nigeria, of course, will pick the tickets at the end of the day.
Well, let's stay away from athletics now and go to volleyball, where the president of the Nigerian Volleyball Federation, Musa Nirod, has assured that the country's women's beach volleyball team will give a very good account of themselves as they begin preparations for the Paris Olympic Games. The Paris Olympic Games is one where we've seen Nigeria enter into a couple of sports and sports discipline, and volleyball is one which we do have hope. We understand there will be a qualifier for the event in June.
Yes, and for what we've seen, the qualifiers, of course, at this point in time, I think is in top gear. The President Nimrod, he's doing everything, of course, he can to make sure that the female volleyball team, actually put up a very impressive performance. We saw them at the All-African Games.
Beach volleyball team.
Yeah, beach volleyball team, of course. We saw them at the All-African Games, of course. They were able to put up some impressive performance. I think they got a bronze medal in that particular competition. Now, for me, I think it's a good one. It's a good step, for them to be able, of course, to go down there and be able to get this ticket, to the Paris Olympic game. It will really go a long way, seeing the beach volleyball team of Nigeria, of course, at the Paris Olympic Games.
Talking about Paris Olympic Games and beach volleyball reminds me that the host country, France, have been given automatic ticket. We know that the United States of America has one team very strong when it comes to beach volleyball. Meanwhile, winners of each of the 5 continental confederations Olympic qualification events will earn one spot. And Nigeria definitely will hope to pick the available spot from Africa. Is this possible?
I think, of course, it should be possible. When you take a look at the level of preparation and everything they've done, over time, of course, you should give them. And the president of the federation, Nimrod, is one man, of course, who is also very serious, when it has to do with running that particular federation. So for me, I think he will do everything he can, and as well as the players, of course, to make sure that they get this particular, no matter how tough, no matter how difficult it is. I think when you take a look at the progress of the volleyball, beach volleyball, team down here in Nigeria, of course, you should be able to give it up to them that everything is possible. It is possible for them, of course, to get the tickets.
We're talking about everything being possible. It's been possible for a Nigerian young basketball player, David Team, to bag 3 United States scholarship offers after encountering a Calabar-born lawyer called Faithfulness Okom. This is the way to go. It's been very interesting for the young man to get scholarship to be in the United States of America, courtesy of basketball.
For me, I think it's a good one for him. At this point in time, of course, you will see it's as a result of hard work and as well as the help of the Calabar-born lawyer talking about Faithful Okon. And from what we're seeing, I think it was as a result of both of them, coming together. And he was, the lawyer actually saw that, of course, the young man is very, 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 talented, and of course he has a lot, of course, to offer when it has to do with, basketball, and he was able, of course, to be enough support to him. We just hope that, of course, he'll be able to utilize, this particular opportunity. I think for me, it's a very huge one, for him, and then, be able to showcase, his talent. These are what we expect in the country. Well, when many individual in the country, sport talents, and being able to train them and take them, of course, to another level. And I believe if we continue to see things like this, happening in the country, it will really go a long way, in terms of churning out talent, in the country. So for me, I think it's a good one, of course, for David team, and as well, good gesture you will see from the lawyer talking about Faithfulness Okon. We hope that this synergy will actually grow to make David team one of the very best when it has to do with basketball for Nigeria as well.
The man was just picked up because of his height. That was the attraction to the guy who sponsored him, and big relief to his family as well.
Big relief to his family. I think the height, of course, height is an advantage in basketball. When you have height, of course, especially when you're a point guard, it gives you that advantage. And maybe you're a defender as well. It also gives you that advantage, as a basketball player. So for me, height is very, very, very important. And I think for me, that was actually a very huge, advantage for him. But apart from height, I think he also have to make sure that, he polish his skills and make himself, better, because this is a very huge opportunity for him. He gets down to the United States. That's where basketball, of course, is being played, and there's very huge opportunity for you to get yourself being drafted, to any of the NBA team if you do well, at the end of the day. So for me, I believe, the future is bright for him. We just hope that he'll be able to utilize this opportunity at the end of the day.
Well, congratulations to 18 there, and we just hope that he will be able to continue from where the Good Samaritan had taken him to at this point in time. Talking about basketball reminds me that it's just 24 hours to tip off of the Sahara Conference of the Basketball League in Africa in Dakar, Senegal. And talking about the Sahara Conference reminds me that Rivers Hoopers, the Kingsmen, are in that group where we have APR Rwanda, US Monastir, defending champions, and the home side, AS Douanes of Senegal. Kingsley, 24 hours to tip off. What are the expectations from the Sahara Conference?
A lot of expectation, as it is, and I tell you, everything is in top gear at the moment. Rivers Hoopers are already there, preparing, as it stands now, for their game as well.
I saw them at the venue, trying to loosen up.
Yeah, and for me, I think it's a good one. They were able to get there in time, and at least, try to get themselves familiarized with the venue and as well the weather condition. Down there, the coach of the side, Ogo Daudo, was actually being asked, the weather condition down there in Senegal maybe it might be too hot or probably too cold, but he said if they can survive the weather condition here in Port Harcourt and also in Lagos where they went for training, that they can, of course, survive the weather condition down there in Senegal. So it's good of a thing that they were able to get there in time, at least get themselves familiarized with the environment, and as well also get themselves familiarized, with the weather condition. It will actually help them, of course, go a long way at this point in time. And also, the other team down there talking about APRO, they are also very, very much, optimistic. Their player, Andonis Fila, of course, he's been talking tough ahead of their encounter as well. US Monastir, a little bit quiet in this one. Defending champion, you will see. Of course, you don't expect to hear much from them because they know what it takes already to be in the competition. So for me, it promises to be an impressive, Sahara Conference at this point in time. We've seen the 9th conference, how tough it is, the Kahalari Conference as well, and now the 9th conference, of course, will be coming up this weekend.
Sahara Conference?
Yeah, the Sahara Conference is coming up this weekend. A lot, of course, to expect, and we hope that Rivers Hoopers, of course, this time will go a long way.
Rivers Hoopers, inaugural participants at the first edition of the Basketball League in Africa, now back at the 4th edition of the Basketball League in Africa. Yes, it is to be held across 3 different countries, with 4 different host countries. This is interesting. This is the first time in the Basketball League in Africa we have 4 countries, host the event. Like you mentioned, we've seen the Nile Conference, we've seen the Kalahari Conference, and we expected that there will be, of course, the seeded event after the Sahara Conference before the playoff finals proper. It's a lot of addition and innovation to this basketball league in Africa this time around.
Yes, a lot of innovation, and you must give kudos, to FIBA for putting up, for putting up the structure this way. And I think for me, it has actually created room, for other teams, from other countries to be able to participate, especially the likes of Bangui, basketball club. We saw them, putting up a very impressive, performance as well, in their own conference, as well as other teams as well. So for me, I think it's a very good innovation from FIBA, and they're trying to make sure that the Basketball African League, of course, get that attraction down here.
If you remember, this is the first time we saw the event being hosted in South Africa. The Kalahari Conference was hosted in South Africa. It means that things moving around from South Africa to Egypt, and from Egypt now to Dakar, and from Dakar it will be going to Rwanda as well. 4 countries, taking part, are hosting this event, and it's really interesting. 4 different countries, with 3 different conferences, and of course the final coming up in Rwanda. River Supers, definitely, with all the support they've gotten from the River State government and of course the Basketball Federation this time around, should be able to make the country, proud. Injection of 5 foreign-based players should be a reason why they should do well. Divine Ike, a forward, a lot of people fear, and of course do have the pedigree and experience in basketball league here in Africa.
Yeah, of course, that's you see, give it to Divine Ike, as a stand. Of course, he has actually played for the D Tigers, and he's played as well in the Basketball African League. He has much of experience, when it has to do with this level of competition. I think for me, it's a very huge one for River Supers. One thing that I so much love about what River Supers did is the fact that they were able to bring in those experienced players, those foreign-based players. You mentioned the likes of Wee Perry, the likes of Divine Ike. You talk about John Wilkins. These are players, of course, that have played in the Basketball African League. They have much of the experience, and I think this time around, taking a look at the nature of the Basketball League at this point in time, you don't have to go there with just home-based players. You have to make sure you get those experienced players, and bringing in those experienced players into the mix, I think, of course, give River Supers that boost, to be able to challenge this time. When you take a look at our group, very, very deadly, where you have US Monastir, AP Arrow, and you have AS Donaire as well. These are tough teams when it has to do with basketball down here in Africa, and we hope that these experienced players will be able, of course, to propel River Supers, to go far in this particular one. We'll just keep our fingers crossed and hope that all is well. There should be synergy. There should be much understanding between these players, and I think with unity and of course much understanding, they were able to do well this time around at the Basketball African League.
Meanwhile, the coach of the team, very experienced, should be able to take them, give them some level of confidence, and move them up as well. Coach Daudo.
Yes, Ogo Daudo is one man, of course, who's been in the game for a very long time. He's been with the team as well for a very long time as well. He's won the Nigerian Basketball African League with Rivers Hoopers, many times as well. And he's also coached the D Tigers of Nigeria. So well experienced, coach, you will say at this point in time. And as well, having him leading the River Super side, I think that should be more, the players should be more confident, to play under him this time around at the Basketball African League. And I think for me, when you take a look at the foreign players, of course, that came into the team, it was as a result, of course, his instruction that those players, of course, should come, because he has watched them, he knows them very well, and of course, he knows what they were able to bring into the team this time around for the Basketball African League. So for me, I think Ogo Daudo, no problem for him being the coach down there. Taking a look at his experience, he knows what it takes, to be there at the Basketball African League. And for me, that's also a morale booster to the team.
Morale booster to the team by having a former national team coach as the head coach of River Supers, called the Kingsmen, and having at least 5 foreign-based players who have been, who have had experience in the basketball league in Africa and have played in some of the top foreign leagues across Europe, should be a reason why River Super should qualify. from their group and not maybe go through the seeding of the tournament. We wish them the very best of luck. 24 hours to address the tip-off of the basketball league in Africa at this Savannah conference taking place in Dakar, Senegal. Well, let's hope that the River Supers will do their very best. And we're talking about River Supers and basketball. The Tigers, what do we expect from them ahead of the 2025 Afro Basketball Championship?
I think we should also be expecting something very huge at this point, from the D Tigers of Nigeria, because I think we've seen a very huge setback in the D Tigers team. They couldn't actually pick the tickets, for the Paris Olympic Games. They actually lost at their home ground. Yeah, that qualifiers actually took place in Lagos, and D Tigers, of course, didn't do well, and that was so embarrassing at this point in time. And for me, I think a lot has to be done. Taking a look at what has happened in the basketball, in the Nigerian Basketball Federation, I think some of the players are a little bit discouraged, for representing the national team, because they've not been down motivated. These are things that happen at some points, and you see these players not really happy. Most times you get, late preparation to games. Talk about the Paris Olympic qualifier, they didn't prepare very well. The players, didn't have enough time to train, to gel together, and they went down there, couldn't do very well, and they missed the ticket for the Paris Olympics. So for me, we just hope that we'll see a better preparation this time around for the D Tigers of Nigeria when it has to do with the Afro Basketball Championship that will be coming up. The NBBF should be able to step up their game in terms of preparation, and as well, get a coach. Ogo Dado, of course, was the man who stood in for them in the Paris Olympic qualifiers. Will he be there this time again? I think we should be able to look forward to see how to strengthen the D Tigers team of Nigeria.
The Tigers need to strengthen the male basketball team of Nigeria. Needs to be strengthened ahead of the basketball championship coming up in February next year. And talking about the Tigers reminds me of the D Tigress, which is the female national basketball team of Nigeria. They are as well preparing for the Paris Olympic Games. They have been drawn into a very, very difficult group, tough group, Kingsley. Can they survive amidst the United States of America, Australia, and Canada?
It's going to be very difficult for the Tigers, because they played against Canada. They also played against France, Australia. Very deadly one, if you ask me. We just hope that maybe a miracle might happen, because it take a lot of miracle for them to be able to pull through in this one.
The Tigers players, most of them are based abroad, and they know they've met some of these players before, and they met at the World Cup as well, if you remember.
Yes.
So it doesn't look like it will be a stroll in the park for the D Tigers. The D Tigers can stand up to these big names.
It's one thing in having stars, and one thing for these stars to come together and play as a team. That's one thing about it. As we speak now, the Australians, they're even preparing. They have friendly games to play. We had France, Canada, Australia. We should, of course, start our preparation in time. The D Tigers of Nigeria couldn't pick the Olympic ticket due to poor preparation. So I think for me, the D Tigers, no matter how good the players are, or even the coach, Wena Wakama, they should start training in earnest to make sure that, of course, they stand on a very good ground to challenge these teams that they have in their group. So at this point in time, I think the NBBF should put up modalities to make sure that the players are on ground and start fixing some friendly games in order to make them be a better team heading down to the Olympics.
Well, we're looking forward to a very decent performance at the Olympic Games, especially in the group where the Tigers, the female basketball side of Nigeria, finds herself. Meanwhile, it's time for us to take a break. When we return, we'll take a very deep look at the Madrid Open, where defending champion Aryna Sabalenka is into the final against world #1 Iga Swiatek. And coming in for the world of football, Enyimba International continue to truck on about the league and the Federation Cup despite setbacks. And across in Europe, Bayer Leverkusen undefeated, 48 games in the course of the season. Who can stop Bayer Leverkusen from Germany? When we return from a break, we'll let you have all the details here on Atlantic Televisions. Stay with us.
From the line across the ocean to the land beyond the mountains, through the Sahara, we bring on sport news, live analysis, expert discussions on trending stories in politics, business, socio-economy, sports, and documentaries. So catch all the updates on the only on ATN.
Telling him not to counterpunch. People into the country illegally. That is amazing.
Honorable
You human
On the point of order,
Honorable
you
on the point of
on them. They are not picking our calls. They made up their minds.
So no agreement with the EU, but
Every day, our lives are changed by history,
We are one people, all of us.
leaders, politics,
Nobody's ambition is what they blood.
I have fought very firmly.
natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
telling him not to counterpunch.
Welcome back. It's Sports Talk here on Atlantic Television Network, and we'll bring you up to speed with the latest happening around the world of sports. And talking about latest happening around the world of sport reminds me that there have been qualifiers for the playoff of the NBA in the United States of America. Just before we get to tennis, Kingsley, it's looking very interesting. Both Celtics qualified in their conference ahead of Miami Heat. Overall, 4-1 after the 118 to 87 points played in the early hours of yesterday.
For me, I think huge one you see, of course, for the Boston Celtic team, they really deserve this one. When you take a look at the way they started, the series, at some point, they went about, 3-0 lead, in the series, and that is true that they were very much ready at this time around, for the Miami Heat side, who has not been very fantastic
this season.
And
Bam Adebayo,
and and the rest of the players, of course, they've not really live up to expectation. And for the Boston Celtic, I think the likes of Jason Tatum, the likes of Jalen Brown, and Derek White, of course, they have been very instrumental. The likes of Drew Holiday, these are players, of course, that have been very, very fantastic for the Boston Celtics side, and that's why they were able, to get past, the Miami Heat, in that fashion, 4-1 in that particular one. For the Miami Heat, we expected a lot, from Bam Adebayo, who has been very, very instrumental, for them. But of course, you don't expect only him, to be able to, churn out those points. The last game, he was able to put up about 23 points. The other man talking about Taylor Hero is also one man in the Miami Heat side, which everyone expected. But his best as well was not also good enough, at the end of the day. For me, I think it's a sad one for the Miami Heat this season. We hope, of course, maybe they will bounce back, strongly come next season. But kudos to the Boston Celtics side. Kudos
to Boston Celtics side for taking out Miami Heat, ensuring that Nigerian player Bam Adebayo would not be in the finals of this year's NBA. And as if that is not enough, or more shocking for Nigerians, is the fact that Milwaukee Bucks too are out. They will not be in the finals of this year's basketball league because they crashed out at the playoff against Indiana Pacers. Kisley, this was a shocking result, 120 over 98 points scored by Milwaukee Bucks, meaning that another Nigerian player, Gianni Antetokounmpo, has been denied appearance at these finals of this year's NBA basketball league.
For me, I think it's a sad one for the Milwaukee Bucks, and huge disappointment if you ask me. And I think Gianni Antetokounmpo won't be a happy man because injury, of course, really actually took him out for this particular one. In about 3 games, he didn't participate, and that was a very huge setback, for the Milwaukee Bucks side, even for him, as a player. Because if he was around, I think maybe there would have been a turnaround, in this particular result. Gianni Antetokounmpo, I think Damian Lillard as well, one player that's also been very instrumental for the Milwaukee Bucks. 2 of these players were injured, and that was the reason why, of course, we saw that setback, for the Milwaukee Bucks side. They actually didn't have a very poor performance in the regular season, but I think this injury that played it really brought a very huge setback, to them. And for me, I think it's very, very disappointing looking at the fact that, of course, they were also that by Indiana Pacers. For me, on paper, you give the Milwaukee Bucks that opportunity to go past the Indiana Pacers. The players on ground, the likes of Chris Middleton, talk about Brook Lopez, and the rest of them, they did their best. But when you don't have your key man, Gianni Antetokounmpo, Leonard as well, of course, sometimes the players will not be that complete. And when I mean complete, having that synergy or that confidence, of course, to play. And that was why we saw that setback, for the Milwaukee. But for me, I think really, really disappointing at this point in time. I will hope that maybe the man Gianni Antetokounmpo will take solace and see how to bounce back next season.
Very disappointing that African players will not be at the finals of the Basketball League in Africa for 2024. We talked about Bam Adebayo, we talked about Gianni Antetokounmpo, and as if that's not enough, now there will be no Joe Embiid at the finals of this year's Basketball League in Africa. Kesley, Philadelphia 76ers, 115 as compared to 118 scored by New York Knicks. Knicks from New York definitely progressing to the finals, courtesy of a 4-2 aggregate score in the best game in game of 7.
Surprising, very, very surprising. Looking at that particular series, 4-2 in favor of New York Knicks. Very, very surprising down there. So, taking a look at the performance of the 76ers in the regular season, they would have probably maybe toppled
the team from LA, that's Los Angeles, the Clippers, while their other team, let's say their elder team, LA Lakers, are already crashed out. LA Clippers are still trying to survive at the playoff because it's now 2-3 against Dallas Mavericks. It was 123 as compared to 93 points scored by the Clippers from the Los Angeles. Can Clippers from Los Angeles survive? It is 3-2. One more game, 2 more games to go in this series.
I think they have what it takes, to survive. To take a look at, how it is, but it's only going to be a tight one. Looking at the fact that Dallas Mavericks are leading and they look very favorite, necessarily if you ask me down there.
Mavericks win 1 more game and they dare to be it.
It's done and dusted, and I think they're also looking very much optimistic in getting this one their key
in their
man,
very next game, of course.
Yes.
If Dallas wins the next game, then it's done. But if Clippers win, then it goes to the wire, the last game.
Yes. It's going to be a tough one, and I think the Clippers will want to do everything to bounce. But Dallas are looking very much optimistic. Luka Doncic, their key man, is one man who's very much optimistic. In the last game, of course, he was able to amass 35 points. He can also take away the brilliance of Kyrie Irving in that Dallas Mavericks side. So I think they look very much, ready for that particular last game. But for LA Clippers, we'll just hope that maybe we might possibly see.
You don't want to go the way of Lakers.
Let us see. Let us see what comes up. But I think it's going to take a lot, for them to take out, Dallas Mavericks. Taking a look at the way they perform and the players, of course, down there in the Dallas Mavericks side. Well,
let's quickly go to tennis now. And talking about tennis reminds me that Iga Swiatek is already into the final, but she has the defending champions Aryna Sabalenka to contend with at this year's Madrid Open.
It's going to be a very tight one. Don't forget, last time, Iga Swiatek, of course, she was runner-up to Aryna Sabalenka. Sabalenka won it last time. And this time around, both players, of course, will be meeting. It's going to be a very, very tight one. This is a situation of world number 1 and world number 2 in the WTA. So it's going to be a very, very tight encounter as it stands. And talking about Iga Swiatek, she took out Madison Keys, who also been very fantastic, in this competition. And for Aryna Sabalenka, taking out Elena Rybakina, huge statement of intent for her, going into this particular one. So it's going to be a blockbuster, and we look forward to see, of course, who'll be able to, take this one once again. Will it be Aryna Sabalenka once again, or maybe Iga Swiatek? Iga Swiatek is coming for revenge, taking a look at what happened last time. I hope maybe she'll be able to, see how to outclass Aryna Sabalenka this time.
So Iga Swiatek, no doubt, doing very well at the Madrid Open. She's won. She's into 3 finals so far this season, and we just hope that that revenge mission could be accomplished against Aryna Sabalenka, the world number 2 in female tennis. Tight fixture, I must tell you, world number 1 against world number 2, and let's see what has happened in the ATP and still at the Madrid Open. That Medvedev couldn't continue at the quarterfinals.
Yeah, he couldn't continue at the quarterfinal due to injury, of course, he sustained, in his right leg. That was not, of course, a very good one, for the man who has actually tried as much as he can, of course, to get to this stage of the competition. He was actually in action against Leska. I think he was actually leading in the 4th set of that particular one before, the leg injury actually gave him a very tough time, and he has to, withdraw from that particular one. And for me, taking a look at the ATP, it's been very tough. We've seen big names, crash out, the likes of Rafael Nadal. We've seen Carlos Alcaraz as well being ousted out from the competition. Yannick Sinner is also one man everyone expected, to go far, but injury also took him out of the competition. Same thing with Daniel Medvedev, at this point in time. So it's going to be a very, very tough one, going forward at this point in time. Let's just see, how it goes down there in the ATP. Let's
go to football quickly now. And talking about football reminds me that Rangers International, one of the traditional clubs here in Nigeria, can no longer be part of this year's Federations Cup, or what is called the President's Cup, because they've been knocked out by no other than Kano Pillars via penalties.
Yeah, it was a very tough encounter, 6-5, in that penalty in favor of Kano Pillars. Rangers, I think they have a lot on their head, at this point in time. They are top of the Nigerian Premier Football League table, and they really want to get the title after not, laying their hands in so many years. So, for me, I feel there is no problem for them. They should just, focus all their energy on the Nigerian Premier Football League and see how far they can go.
It was yet another penalty win for Imba International against relatively unknown side.
Relatively unknown side, talking about 1J FC. It ended 7-6, in penalty in favor of Imba Football Club. I think for me it would be a good one for them, looking at the fact that they were actually they were deducted 2 points, due to that controversy.
That was in the league. That's in the league, and this is the Federation Cup.
That's in the league, and for me, I think if they can also put their energy in the Federation Cup as well, it might also be an advantage for them as well.
Well, let's hope that teams have qualified and looking at maybe what is their name now, Aqua United. Yes, they were able to take Asinusho Football Club of Port Harcourt in yet another win. But talking about wins reminds me that the governor of Bayelsa State, Senator Doyediri, has congratulated Bayelsa born newly appointed head coach of the national team, Finidi George, aftermath of his appointment. You know that Finidi George, yes, from Bayelsa, born and raised in Port Harcourt, River State, now having attention from both the River State government and the Bayelsa State government.
Good one. He has actually gotten a lot of support, after he was being appointed the head coach of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. We hope that Nigerians will continue to support him, just the way everybody is cheering him up at this point in time. When he starts, the job. A huge task ahead of him. The World Cup qualifiers is the priority at this moment for Nigerians. We hope, of course, he'll be able to deliver, at the end of the day. Well,
Finidi George definitely have to deliver at the end of the day. We understand the final crossing of the T's and dotting of the I's will take place there this week in Abuja, where he will be meeting with Nigeria Football Federation and, of course, the technical committee to at least ascertain the appointments of its assistants and, of course, how much salary. Of course, we know the duration of the contract is for 2 years. We wish Finidi George the very best as he heads the technical crew of the Super Eagles of Nigeria. Let's quickly now go across to Europe. Kingsley, action took place last night, at the Europa Cup, and one team that is on the mind of everybody aftermath of last night is Bayern Leverkusen. Bayern Leverkusen can't stop winning matches. They've won over 48 games so far this season.
An impressive ride for Xabi Alonso and his men. Getting that victory against Roma away from home, 2-0, was very important. Has actually gotten something very huge this time around, and we're looking forward to see how far they'll be able to go. Can they go unbeaten, throughout this season? That's actually the target everyone is looking for at this point in time. 47 games already, unbeaten, and they're going for a treble this time. They're in the DFA Cup final, and they've already won the German Bundesliga, and now they're also looking forward, to win the Europa League as well. I think for me, it's a very, very huge one for Bayer Leverkusen and Xabi Alonso.
Xabi Alonso, no doubt, his first head chief coach, appointment as a coach, is doing so well. In Europe, he has won the league with several matches to go in the German Bundesliga, the first win in nearly 200 years in the German Bundesliga, and now he's continuing at the Europa League, doing so well, beating established teams like Roma FC, and now unbeaten in 47 games. That's quite a big record in Europe. We hope that it will continue and see going through the entire season undefeated. Maybe looking at what we saw of Arsenal a couple of years ago in the Premiership in England. And there were some other results in the Europa League last night. Quickly, can you take one or two because we're running out of time?
Yeah, well, we saw that impressive results, from the Europa League. The game between Atalanta and Marseille actually gone down 1-1. It actually gone down the wire. I'm looking forward to see, of course, how the next encounter will pan out. So we might be seeing Bayer Leverkusen locking horns against any of this team, Atalanta or Marseille, in the final of the Europa Cup.
Well, in the Europa Conference, there we had one encounter. We saw the English team, succumbing at home. Aston Villa, beaten by 4-2. At home by Olympiacos. That was a very shocking result. Everything went wrong for Aston Villa last night.
Everything went actually...
they lost a penalty even.
Wrong for them. 4-2, I think, for me, was embarrassing to Una Emery's side. They have been very, very fantastic this season. A team that is actually competing for the top 4 spots in the English Premier League. I think, for me, they would have actually gone past Olympiacos in that game. But, they fell short of, expectation. And the players, of course, didn't really come to the party in that particular encounter, and they lost. And for me, I think it would be a very difficult one, for them to get this one, done and dusted, because if you take a look at the fact that they lost at home, Olympiacos will be able to go